It's Wednesday, February 7, and time for your Barbados Day afternoon news update. I'm Kmar Jordan. So glad you could join us. Strong action is needed to turn around the ailing Barbados economy. This warning today from top officials of the Caribbean Development Bank, who say debt management, a major reduction of expenditure, and measures to boost productivity should be implemented immediately to set the country on a credible growth path. The CDB's Director of Economics, Justin Ram, issued the caution this morning as the bank delivered its annual report on the performance of regional economies.
That the government needs to examine and to bring under control the cost of debt. Right now, the interest rate, the effective interest rate on debt is too high, and so some debt management is required. Secondly, the government also needs to examine its other expenditures, and particularly as it relates to transfers and subsidies, which are currently running at around 13% of GDP. So that means there needs to be some reforms, particularly of state-owned enterprises. Thirdly, the government needs to make the Barbados economy a lot more competitive and productive. And so that means dealing with inefficiencies in the doing business environment. Fourthly, throughout this process of reform, it's really important that the government focuses social interventions towards those who need it. And that also means that there needs to be a new training program to provide laborers with the skills for the new labor market. And I should say, fifth, the government needs to examine its infrastructure. It needs to put in place a program that reforms and replaces some of the infrastructure that we have now, particularly as it relates to roads and to sewage.
Meanwhile, the island's falling international reserves are a source of concern. RAM notes that Barbados and the Bahamas are both below the accepted international benchmark of 12 weeks of import cover. He advises the two countries to tackle the problem head-on by reining in their spending.
Improving fiscal balances can also have a positive impact on foreign exchange reserves. Now, focusing on this chart, two of our BMCs, the Bahamas and Barbados, report foreign exchange reserves below the 3-month import cover threshold. For countries with fixed exchange rates, policymakers must monitor domestic inflation and competitiveness. In countries with floating exchange rates, there is need for greater flexibility. Drawing down reserves to maintain artificially high rates is unsustainable.
In other news this Wednesday, the local military is gearing up to fight potential cybersecurity threats against Barbados. Prime Minister Frendo Stewart made the announcement this morning at the launch of the Barbados Defence Force's website at its garrison headquarters. He says the military is now working with other national agencies to develop its security capability. Our Emmanuel Joseph reports.
Prime Minister Stewart told the BDF that its growth in the use of digital technology must also consider the importance of cybersecurity. He said this is even more relevant in the case of the BDF. Stewart, who is also Minister of National Security, warned the force that it cannot afford to be left behind, knowing that violent extremists and cybercriminals also recognize the value of digital media to exploit its global strategy for the recruitment of young minds. He said the BDF must be in a position to intercept and fight the emerging propaganda challenges which have the potential to undermine national security. From the BDF headquarters and the garrison, Emmanuel Joseph for Barbados Today.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Well, HIV/AIDS cases among men over the age of 50 are on the rise. This morning, Social Care Minister Steve Blackett revealed the latest statistics on the disease as he addressed the start of a one-day workshop at the Accra Beach Resort on HIV/AIDS, which was specifically targeted at men.
In 2012, 76.67% of the diagnosed cases were males compared to 33.3% for females. Of the 1,673 AIDS-related deaths between 1984 and 2012, men constituted 71%. In the HIV National Strategic Plan 2008 to 2013, statistical information indicated that of the HIV cases in Barbados for the period 1990 to 2006, the fastest growing category of HIV diagnoses was for persons aged 50 years and over. Between 2005 and 2006, of the newly diagnosed cases, 79% were persons aged 50 and over. It is noted that men are more likely to be tested of later stages in the disease process.
Mr. Blackett says in many cases, discrimination, fear, and ageism prevent the over 50s from coming forward and receiving treatment. He called for an intergenerational approach to combating HIV/AIDS more effectively.
In relation to HIV, such behaviors may be based on misconceptions as well as sexual practices which place them at risk. Now, it is my view that older persons simultaneously accessing this information with younger persons will serve to create an enabling environment, improve communication, strengthen bonds, and bridge the generation gap. This approach can only be seen as a win-win situation, since older adults not only have responsibility for their own lives and actions, but they also have the responsibility for improving young people's lives.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
In regional happenings, the Antigua Barbuda Parliament has stamped its approval on legalization, allowing citizens to use up to 15 grams of cannabis for personal use. Prime Minister Gaston Brown acknowledged during debate on the Misuse of Drugs Amendment Bill in Parliament that a large section of the population uses cannabis, and as such, criminalizing people, he says, was posing a development challenge. More now in this ABS television report.
The Prime Minister said marijuana-related convictions have barred young people from taking advantage of academic and professional opportunities.
Do we continue to criminalize our youth, to put their development at risk, to have a situation in which they get convicted for the use of a spliff or possession of a spliff, and at the same time preclude them from developing themselves, further educational prospects abroad, even the opportunity to travel to certain countries because of a criminal conviction, or to undermine their job prospects.
Under the amended bill, those found with up to 15 grams of cannabis will not get a criminal record. Instead, it will be a ticketable offense. In addition, those with convictions related to the possession of less than 15 grams of cannabis will have their records expunged. The Prime Minister, however, said, with steps being taken to decriminalize the drug, there will also be strategies to reduce demand.
We also will have a concurrent public education program to reduce the demand, to let the citizens and the residents know about the problems associated with the use of marijuana. So we're taking a very responsible position. In fact, what we're seeking here is to literally deal with it from the public health standpoint and to literally regulate it in a better way.
Noting that his government is against the smoking of marijuana as it has negative health effects, he said the decriminalization is restricted to private use.
Further afield, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel moved a step closer to forming a coalition government with her center-left rivals today after 4 months of political uncertainty. A spokesperson for the German Social Democrats confirmed it had reached a deal with Merkel's Christian Democratic Union, but stressed that it has to be approved by the party's 460,000 members. The announcement represents a huge breakthrough for Merkel, who has struggled to form government since elections last September. The deal would pave the way for a return to the so-called Grand Coalition, which governed prior to the last election. It will also leave the right-wing Alternative for Germany party as the main opposition in the German parliament. Well, that's news at this hour, but for more you can log on to www.barbadosday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper email updates, or you can like us on Facebook. And of course, if you're moving around Barbados Day this afternoon, you can check us out on Izumi Media in bus terminals or Screenplay in a supermarket or a gas station near you. Also check us out on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Kmar Jordan. Have a fabulous afternoon, and we'll see you later on tonight.